The strange signal. Deep in the cold darkness of space, Captain Ethan Carter sat in his chair, staring at the blinking red light on the control panel. The signal had come from nowhere, breaking the silence of their long journey. It was weak, almost a whisper among the endless stars. "Are you sure this is real?" Ethan asked, his voice calm but sharp. His communications officer, Mia Torres, nodded, her fingers moving quickly over the holographic display. "Yes, Captain. It's a real signal." But the strange thing is, she hesitated, glancing at the crew around her. "It's coming from an uninhabited star system. There's nothing there. No planets, no stations, no colonies." Ethan leaned forward. "Play it." A soft static sound filled the control room, followed by something that made the crew freeze. A human voice, weak, broken, whispered through the speakers. "I am still here. Find me." Silence followed. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. "That's a human voice," said Dr. Alan Brooks, their chief scientist. "But that system is dead. There has never been a human presence there." Ethan's mind raced. Space was vast and full of mysteries, but this was impossible. Could it be a distress signal? Asked Liam Parker, their engineer. Mia shook her head. "It doesn't match any known distress frequencies, and it's not bouncing off any relay stations. It's direct." "Then that means," Ethan hesitated, "it's coming from someone who's actually there." The crew fell silent. The idea was terrifying. How could a human be out there, alone, in a place where humans had never set foot? "It could be a trap," said Dr. Brooks. "Pirates, alien interference, or something worse." Ethan exhaled slowly. His gut told him this was important. This was not just a random signal. There was something out there, someone who needed them. "Set course for the signal's location," he ordered. Mia hesitated. "Captain, are you sure? We don't know what's waiting for us." Ethan met her gaze. "That's why we have to find out." The journey into the unknown. The ship, Odyssey, adjusted its trajectory. The engines roared softly, pushing them toward the dead system. Stars blurred outside the windows as they jumped into faster-than-light travel. As they traveled, tension filled the control room. Dr. Brooks pulled up old star charts. This system was scanned 50 years ago. No planets, just a black dwarf star and asteroid debris. "Then where is the signal coming from?" Mia muttered. Ethan didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the view screen as they neared their destination. The feeling in his chest was heavy. Something about this felt wrong, but also right. Hours passed. Then, suddenly, "We're here," Mia announced. Outside the ship, the black dwarf star loomed like a dead heart in the void. No light, no warmth, just an empty, silent graveyard of floating rocks. Ethan narrowed his eyes, scanned for the signal's origin. Mia's fingers moved quickly over the controls. Numbers and coordinates flashed on the screen. Then, "Captain, this doesn't make sense," she whispered. Ethan stood up. "What?" Mia swallowed hard. "There's something here that wasn't in the old records." The crew gathered around the display. There, hidden in the shadows of a massive asteroid field, was a planet that shouldn't exist. Ethan's heart pounded. Impossible. Dr. Brooks paled. A rogue planet. How could it go unnoticed for so long? Mia stared at the readings. "It has an atmosphere. Oxygen, nitrogen, Earth-like conditions. A breathable planet, hiding in the dark." And the signal, the human voice, was coming from there. Ethan clenched his jaw. This was no accident. This was something deliberate. "Prepare for descent," he ordered, approaching the unknown. The Odyssey maneuvered through the asteroid field, avoiding massive chunks of rock that floated like silent sentinels. The closer they got to the planet, the more eerie the silence became. No transmissions, no signs of life, only that single, ghostly signal, repeating over and over. I am still here. Find me. Mia turned to Ethan. Captain, I don't like this. It feels like a warning, not a call for help. Ethan kept his eyes on the planet. A strange feeling settled in his chest. The Odyssey broke through the thin atmosphere. Below them, the planet stretched out, a mix of ruined alien structures and thick, overgrown forests. The crew held their breath as the ship scanned the surface. Then, one life sign, one single heartbeat, human. Ethan inhaled sharply. There's someone down there. Dr. Brooks whispered, but how? Ethan turned to his crew. His voice was steady, but inside, his heart was racing. We're landing. Whoever, or whatever, is down there. We're going to find them. As the Odyssey descended, the strange planet grew larger in the view screen. The ruined buildings, the untouched nature, the chilling silence. And then, just before landing, the signal played one last time. You are late. Ethan's blood ran cold. Someone was expecting them. The lost planet. The Odyssey broke through the thick cloud cover, descending slowly toward the surface of the hidden planet. Captain Ethan Carter stood at the front of the bridge, hands gripping the control panel, eyes locked on the view outside. The planet was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was alive. Lush green forests stretched for miles, broken only by the massive ruins of a long-dead civilization. Towering alien structures stood half-buried in vines, their surfaces cracked with age. But none of that made sense. This place was not on any star charts. It had never been discovered. And yet, here it was. And somewhere down there, a single human life sign was waiting for them. The impossible landscape. The ship hovered above the ruins as Ethan's crew worked quickly to scan the surface. Maya Torres, the communications officer, kept her fingers steady over the controls, watching for any sign of movement. Life sign is still stable, she said, her voice quieter than usual. It's deep inside that structure, about half a mile from our current position. Ethan nodded. Any other life signs? Mia hesitated. No, but I'm getting strange energy readings. Strange how? Asked Dr. Alan Brooks, their chief scientist. Mia shook her head. The scanners can't identify them. It's like something is interfering. Ethan frowned. First, an uncharted planet. Then, a human signal. Now, unknown energy sources. This was not just some random discovery. Something, or someone, had hidden this world for a reason. Prep a landing party, Ethan ordered. We're going down. Descent into mystery. The Odyssey landed gently in a wide clearing just outside the largest ruin. The air was thick and humid, filled with the scent of moss and wet stone. Strange bioluminescent plants glowed softly along the cracked walls, their light pulsing faintly, as if breathing. Ethan led the team. Mia, Dr. Brooks, and their engineer Liam Parker, through the ancient ruins, weapons at the ready. The deeper they went, the colder it became. These structures are thousands of years old, Dr. Brooks whispered, running a hand over the stone. This wasn't built by humans. And yet, Maya said, her voice uneasy, a human is inside. They moved deeper into the ruins, following the scanner signal. The passageways were massive, built for beings much taller than humans. Symbols and carvings lined the walls, depicting strange celestial patterns and figures with glowing eyes. Then, as they stepped into a vast, circular chamber, the signal suddenly stopped. Mia cursed. It's gone. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. Gone. What do you mean gone? Mia tapped her device furiously. I don't know. It just vanished. Like it was never there. Liam adjusted his rifle. Maybe we should head back. Then, a soft sound echoed through the chamber. A whisper. You are here. The girl in the pod. Ethan's flashlight cut through the darkness, landing on a tall metallic structure in the center of the chamber. It was a pod, sleek, futuristic, untouched by time. And inside, a girl. She looked no older than 10 years old, her small frame curled up as if in deep sleep. Her long silver hair floated slightly, suspended in a strange golden liquid. She wore a simple white bodysuit with no markings, no insignia, nothing to indicate where she came from. But what made Ethan freeze were her eyes. Though closed, they glowed faintly beneath her pale eyelids, like tiny stars trapped within her body. Mia gasped. Is she alive? Dr. Brooks scanned the pod. Yes, her vitals are stable. Liam took a cautious step back. This doesn't feel right, Captain. How the hell is there a human kid in an ancient alien ruin? Ethan didn't answer. His mind was racing. Then the pod cracked. A hiss of air escaped as the golden liquid drained away. The girl's eyes fluttered open. And for a brief moment, they shone with the light of 1,000 galaxies. Then she spoke. You are late. Ethan felt his blood run cold. Mia stammered. What? The girl blinked slowly, looking around at them. Then she sat up, as if waking from a long dream. They found us, she said softly. Ethan frowned. Who found us? The girl's starry eyes locked onto his. The ones who erased this place, she whispered. The ones who want me dead. And then, a deep rumbling shook the ruins. Outside, the sky turned red. The hunters arrive. Mia's communicator buzzed violently. Captain, the voice of Odyssey's pilot, Greg Mercer, came through, loud with panic. We've got incoming. Massive ships just appeared out of nowhere. They're jamming our systems. Ethan clenched his jaw. How many? At least 5. And they're big. Energy weapons are charging. Ethan turned to the girl. Who are they? She stood, unfazed, her glowing eyes scanning the ceiling as dust and debris crumbled around them. The Caracs, she said. They found us faster than I expected. Ethan's mind raced. We have to move. Now. The girl reached out and touched the pod. A soft hum filled the air, and suddenly, golden symbols lit up across the ruins. I will protect you, she said, but you must trust me. Liam whispered, Captain, what the hell is she? Ethan didn't have an answer, but right now, that didn't matter. Outside, the first explosions lit up the sky. The enemy had arrived, and the battle for the hidden planet had begun. The girl who shouldn't exist. The ground trembled beneath them. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling as the alien ruins groaned under the weight of the approaching danger. Ethan Carter's grip tightened on his rifle as he turned to the girl with the star-lit eyes. She stood there, calm, as if the world around her wasn't falling apart. Her silver hair floated slightly, as if caught in an invisible current. You need to trust me, she said again, her voice soft but unshaken. Ethan clenched his jaw. Outside, the sky flashed red and gold as enemy ships rained energy blasts onto the surface. The Caracs had found them, and they weren't waiting to say hello. Captain, Mia's voice snapped him back. We need a way out of here. Ethan turned to the girl. Can you stop them? Her golden eyes dimmed slightly. I don't have full control yet, but I can delay them. That wasn't good enough. They needed to escape, not buy time. Then, a loud metallic screech echoed through the ruins. Ethan didn't have time to ask questions. He grabbed the girl's arm and pulled her forward. Move. Running through a dying city. They sprinted through the crumbling ruins, dodging falling debris as the tremors grew stronger. The eerie glow of alien symbols flickered across the walls, pulsing in sync with the girl's movements. It was as if the ruins were reacting to her presence. Who are you? Ethan asked as they ran. She barely glanced at him. The last of my kind. That wasn't an answer. How are you human? Mia pressed. Humans were never here before. The girl finally stopped, turning to face them. Her eyes burned brighter for a second, like tiny stars collapsing in on themselves. I was made, she said. Ethan felt a cold chill crawl up his spine. Made? Dr. Brooks echoed. Made by who? The girl's expression remained unreadable. By the ones who came before you. Before Ethan could press further, the walls of the ruins suddenly cracked, and something massive slammed down behind them. The Carax had arrived. The first encounter. The creature that emerged from the smoke was not human. It stood nearly 10 feet tall, its armor-like skin shimmering under the flickering alien light. Its elongated head had no eyes, just smooth, dark bone-like plating. Its mouth was a row of serrated, interlocking teeth, dripping with thick, black fluid. It hissed, a sound that rattled in their skulls like static over a dying radio signal. Liam took a step back. Oh, hell no. The Carax warrior lifted one massive, clawed hand, and Ethan saw energy ripple between its fingers. A weapon. A natural ability. He didn't wait to find out. Fire, Ethan shouted. The team opened up with everything they had. Pulse rifles flashing blue, energy rounds slamming into the creature's armored body. The force knocked it back, but it didn't die. Instead, it growled. Then it lunged. Faster than something that size should move, it was on them. Liam barely dodged as razor-sharp claws sliced through the air where his head had been. Ethan grabbed Mia, pulling her behind a fallen pillar. The creature swung again, and this time, it connected. Liam screamed as the force sent him flying across the chamber, crashing into a wall with a sickening crack. Ethan barely had time to react before the girl stepped forward. Her golden eyes flared to life. The air vibrated, and suddenly, the Carax froze in place. Not just stopped, completely paralyzed, as if locked in some unseen force. The girl raised her hand, and the creature levitated off the ground, its body trembling violently. A strange golden energy swirled around it. Ethan and his team could only watch in stunned silence. Then, with a single flick of her fingers, the girl snapped the creature's entire body in half. The Carax screamed, an ear-piercing noise that shattered the silence before its body collapsed into itself, disintegrating into dust. The girl turned back to Ethan, her eyes glowing brighter than before. They sent a scout, she said. The rest are coming. Who she really is. Ethan could feel his heartbeat in his throat. This girl, whatever she was, had just destroyed something they could barely put a dent in. What are you? He asked, his voice low. The girl stared at him. I am the last weapon of a war that ended before your kind took its first breath, she said. The ones who made me, they were the first humans. Mia blinked. That's impossible. Humans didn't exist beyond Earth before the expansion era. The girl tilted her head slightly. That is what you believe. Dr. Brooks took a cautious step forward. Are you saying there was an entire human civilization before us? One that fought the Carax? The girl nodded. Yes. And they lost. Ethan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Then how are you still here? He asked. The girl looked up at the ceiling, at the alien symbol still flickering with dying energy. I was left behind. Hidden. Sealed away, she said, until you found me. Mia swallowed. And the Carax. The girl's eyes darkened. They are here to finish what they started. The room shook again, but this time, it wasn't just tremors. A deep, thunderous roar echoed across the ruins. Ethan turned toward the exit. Through the shattered stone doorway, he saw them. The Carax army had arrived. Hundreds of them, and they were coming straight for them. The alien hunters. The ruins trembled as the sky turned blood red. The air itself seemed to shudder with an eerie hum, a deep vibration that crawled up Ethan Carter's spine. He stood at the shattered doorway, gripping his pulse rifle, staring at the approaching nightmare. A horde of Carax warriors moved through the ruined city, their armor gleaming like polished obsidian under the crimson sky. Some crawled on all fours, their elongated limbs clicking against the stone, while others moved upright, their heads turning unnaturally, sensing the air. Their eyeless faces made them even more terrifying. They didn't need sight to hunt. They could feel them. Ethan's team was trapped. Behind him, the girl with starlit eyes stood completely still. She watched the approaching Karax with an expressionless face, her silver hair shifting with an invisible force. Maya Torres, their communications officer, kept one shaking hand on her holster. "Captain, we are so screwed." Liam Parker, bruised and barely able to stand from his last encounter, cursed under his breath. "I second that." Ethan didn't have time for panic. His mind raced. Their ship, the Odyssey, was miles away, and their communications were jammed. The enemy was here, and there were too many to fight. They needed a way out. He turned to the girl. "You said you could stop them." She closed her eyes. "Not all of them." That wasn't the answer he wanted. "Then we run," Ethan ordered. "Now." The chase begins. The Karax screeched in unison, a sound that felt like it could break the world apart. Then they charge. The ruins shook under their monstrous speed. The first wave of creatures leaped onto the walls, crawling like spiders, while others moved on the ground with terrifying speed. Their claws slashed through the ancient stone, tearing down entire pillars as they pursued. Ethan and his team sprinted through the ruins, leaping over fallen debris and pushing past crumbling structures. The path ahead twisted through dark tunnels and narrow corridors, the kind of place where a single mistake meant death. Mia glanced behind them. "They're gaining." Ethan didn't look back. "Keep moving." Liam groaned as he ran, still limping from his injuries. "I hate this job." Ahead, the girl suddenly halted. Ethan nearly crashed into her. "What the hell are you doing?" She raised her hand. The walls around them rippled, and suddenly, a hidden doorway slid open. "This way," she said simply. Ethan didn't hesitate. He grabbed Liam by the arm and pushed the team inside just as the girl stepped through, sealing the stone entrance behind them. Darkness swallowed them whole. A secret beneath the ruins. For a moment, the only sound was their heavy breathing. Liam groaned, sliding down the wall. "If we survive this, I'm taking a long vacation." Ethan ignored him, scanning the dark corridor. "Where are we?" The girl stepped forward, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dark. "This place was built as a refuge, a last stand. It will protect us, for now." Dr. Brooks ran his hands along the walls. "These markings, they're even older than the ruins above." Ethan turned to the girl. "You said the Karax wiped out your creators, but you survived. How?" The girl hesitated. Then she whispered, "Because I am not like them." Mia narrowed her eyes. "Not like who?" The girl finally faced them. "I was not just created to fight. I was created to end them." A deep silence settled over the team. Ethan exhaled. "So, you're a weapon." The girl's gaze didn't waver. "I am more than that." Then, from the depths of the corridor, something stirred. A hum. A pulse of golden energy. The walls lit up, revealing what lay ahead. A chamber of ancient machines, pulsing with a forgotten power. At its center, a towering structure, shaped like a human figure, stood waiting. The girl stepped forward. "This is where I wake up." The return of the lost power. As the girl approached the ancient structure, the air shimmered around her. The machines pulsed in sync with her heartbeat, as if recognizing her presence after thousands of years. Dr. Brooks whispered in awe, "This is technology beyond anything we've ever seen." Mia shook her head. "This is impossible. How can something this advanced be so old?" The girl ignored their words. She lifted both hands, and the entire chamber came to life. Golden lines of energy surged through the walls, the ceiling, the floor, a forgotten system rebooting after an eternity of silence. Ethan instinctively took a step back. Then, a deep mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Primary Guardian activated. Final protocol. Engaged." The ancient humanoid structure at the center began to move. Liam's jaw dropped. "Oh hell." The girl turned back to Ethan. "The Caracs have come to finish what they started," she said. "Now, I will finish what my people could not." Outside, the ruins shook violently. The Caracs had found them again. But this time, the girl was ready. She stepped into the golden structure. A pulse of starfire energy surged through the chamber, and in a flash of light, she vanished. Then the walls around them collapsed, and standing in her place was something else. Something ancient. Something unstoppable. A guardian, awakened from time itself. Ethan had no idea what was coming next. But he knew one thing. The real battle had just begun. The truth about her. The ground split apart as the ruins trembled. Dust and golden light spilled from the cracks, painting the ancient walls in eerie shadows. Ethan Carter and his team shielded their faces as the force of the awakening system roared around them. In the center of the chamber, where the girl had once stood, now stood something else. A guardian, tall, humanoid, but unmistakably alien. Its body glowed with golden energy, intricate patterns pulsing across its smooth metallic surface. It looked both mechanical and alive, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment to return. And within it, the girl was gone. Or rather, she had become it. The golden eyes of the machine blinked open, the same celestial glow Ethan had seen in her human form. The air around them hummed, charged with raw power. Then a voice echoed, not just through the chamber, but in their minds. "Primary Guardian, fully operational. Defensive protocol engage." Ethan took a cautious step forward. "What are you?" The Guardian's head tilted slightly, as if processing the question. Then, in a voice both familiar and alien, it answered, "I am what remains of the First War, the last defense against the Caracs." A sudden impact shook the chamber. The Caracs had found them. The battle above and below. Outside, the sky burned. The Caracs' warships loomed like black obelisks, their jagged hulls gleaming under the blood-red clouds. Energy cannons charged, preparing to obliterate everything below. On the ground, dozens of Caracs warriors flooded the ruins, their elongated limbs moving unnaturally fast. They were not just here to kill. They were here to erase. Ethan's radio crackled with static. "Odyssey to Captain. We're under heavy fire. Shields at 30%. Mia cursed. If we don't get back to the ship soon, we're stranded." Liam gritted his teeth, reloading his rifle. Stranded isn't the problem. Getting ripped apart by those things is. Ethan's mind raced. They had one way out, but would the girl help them? He turned back to the glowing guardian. "Listen to me. If you really are a weapon, if you really were built to stop them, then we need you now." The guardian's eyes burned brighter. "Understood." And then, it moved. Faster than anything Ethan had ever seen, the guardian leaped into the air, leaving behind a golden shockwave that rippled outward, knocking Caracs' warriors off their feet. And then, it began to fight. The power of the forgotten past. The guardian landed in the heart of the battlefield, surrounded by hissing Caracs. One of them lunged, but it never reached its target. The guardian raised its hand, and the creature froze midair, suspended in golden light. It twisted violently, screeching, before being torn apart into dust. Another Caracs charge, claws slashing toward the guardian's head. But the guardian moved like liquid light, ducking, weaving, and then striking back with a force that sent the creature crashing through a stone pillar. It wasn't just strong. It wasn't just fast. It was something else, something beyond human. Above, the Caracs' warships descended, firing beams of crackling red energy at the ruins. The ground exploded as massive craters formed. The entire city was being reduced to rubble. The Odyssey swerved through the sky, dodging enemy fire, but it wouldn't last long. Mia's voice shouted over the comms. "Captain, if we're getting out of here, it has to be now." Ethan turned back to the Guardian. "We need an opening to get back to the ship." For a moment, there was silence. Then the Guardian raised both hands. The air vibrated, golden threads of light spinning outward, forming symbols in the air, symbols that matched the markings on the ruins. Final command accepted. Activating the last gift of the ancients. Ethan barely had time to react before. A wave of pure golden energy exploded outward. The fall of the Karax fleet. The shockwave hit the Karax warships like a storm of light. Every ship within range shuddered violently, their weapon systems failing instantly. Red lights flashed across their hulls as their power drained, their engines dying. One by one, the ships began to fall. The warriors on the ground screeched in pain, their bodies breaking apart, dissolving into the same black dust as the first creature the girl had killed. Ethan watched in awe and horror. This wasn't just a weapon. This was extermination. The Guardian lowered its hands, the glow in its body dimming slightly. The warships were crippled. The ground forces were wiped out. The battle was over. The cost of power. For a long moment, silence filled the ruins. Then, the Guardian staggered. Ethan saw it flicker, as if its form was unstable. The golden light in its body dimmed further, and then it collapsed to its knees. Ethan rushed forward. "Hey!" The Guardian shrank, the metallic form retracting, the golden energy fading, until the girl emerged once more. She fell forward. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her eyes, the endless star-filled eyes, were now dull. Her breathing was shallow, weak. Dr. Brooks knelt beside them, scanning her vitals. She's alive, but whatever power she used, it nearly killed her. Ethan looked down at her, his grip tightening. This girl, this weapon, was also just a child. She had saved them. She had destroyed an entire fleet. But at what cost? Mia's voice came through the comms again. "Captain, we need to go. Now." Ethan exhaled. He lifted the girl into his arms and stood. He turned to his team. "We're bringing her home." They had come looking for a mystery. Instead, they had found the key to humanity's greatest war. And as Ethan carried her toward the Odyssey, he knew. This was only the beginning. The last stand. The Odyssey tore through the upper atmosphere, escaping the ruined planet's gravity just as the final tremors shook its surface. The Karax warships lay in burning wreckage, broken and powerless after the Guardian's devastating energy wave. But Ethan Carter had no time to celebrate. In the medbay, he watched as the girl lay unconscious, her silver hair splayed across the diagnostic table. The golden glow in her veins had faded, her breathing weak and shallow. Dr. Alan Brooks hovered over her, scanning her vitals with trembling hands. "Her body is shutting down," he murmured. "Whatever power she used, it nearly destroyed her." Ethan clenched his jaw. She had saved them all, wiped out an entire fleet, and yet she had no one to save her. Maya Torres, standing nearby, crossed her arms. "Captain, we have to talk about what just happened back there. That girl, she isn't just some survivor. She's something more." Ethan exhaled. "I know, and that's exactly why we need to protect her." Liam Parker, still bruised from the earlier fight, scoffed. "Protect her? Captain, she just vaporized an entire army. Who the hell protects someone like that?" Ethan shot him a look. Someone who understands that just because she's powerful doesn't mean she's safe. A heavy silence filled the room. Then the alarms blared. "The Karax are not done. Captain, incoming." Greg Mercer, their pilot, shouted over the comms. "We have a problem. Multiple problems." Ethan and the crew rushed to the bridge. As soon as they arrived, the view outside made Ethan's blood run cold. In the darkness of space, massive Karax warships materialized, emerging from rips in space itself. These were not like the ones they had just fought. They were bigger, heavier, hungrier, and at their center, a colossal mothership loomed, its hull etched with glowing red runes that seemed to pulse like a living heartbeat. Mia's hands hovered over the scanner. These ships weren't part of the First Fleet. This is something worse. Liam swallowed. You mean that was just their scouting force? Ethan's chest tightened. That wasn't a war fleet. That was a warning. And now, the real Carracks were here. The Queen of the Carracks. A transmission forced its way onto their comms. A voice, deep, alien, and laced with fury, echoed through the ship. You have taken what is ours. You will not leave this place alive. Ethan's jaw locked. Who am I speaking to? For a moment, there was only static. Then the screen flickered, and a figure appeared. A towering creature, unlike the other Carracks, stood in the hologram. Sleek black exoskeleton, but with a crown-like structure forming around its head. It had no eyes, but its face was lined with jagged red scars, glowing with some unseen power. Mia whispered, "That's their leader." The voice returned, this time cold and measured. "I am Servax, first daughter of the Void, Queen of the Carracks." Ethan felt an icy chill settle over the bridge. The queen of an extinction-level species was now looking straight at them. And she was furious. The bargain for survival. Servax tilted her head, as if studying Ethan. "The child you have stolen does not belong to you." Ethan's fists clenched. "She's not a possession. She's not yours." The queen's mandibles clicked, a sound like bones snapping in the dark. "You do not understand. That creature you call a girl, she was never meant to live." Ethan's pulse spiked. Mia whispered, "What does she mean?" Servax continued, her voice laced with ancient hatred. "That child is a mistake, a remnant of a war long buried, a creation that should have been erased when her world burned. She is an echo of those who defied us. She should not exist." Ethan took a step forward, his voice firm. "Then why are you afraid of her?" The queen paused. For the first time, there was hesitation in the way her mandibles twitched. Ethan pressed harder. "You came all this way. You sent a scouting fleet. Now you're here with an armada. If she was nothing, a mistake, you wouldn't be afraid of her." The queen's voice turned into a hiss of pure venom. "You do not know what you are playing with, human." The hologram flickered. "Give her to us, and I will grant you a swift death." Ethan smirked. "Yeah, that's gonna be a no." And just like that, the Carracks fleet opened fire. The last stand begins. Explosions rocked the Odyssey as plasma beams tore through space, ripping apart asteroids and singing the ship's hull. Greg shouted, "Evasive maneuvers," as the ship spiraled through enemy fire. Ethan grabbed the controls. "All hands, battle stations." Liam scrambled to the weapons console, activating the ship's plasma turrets. "Hope you guys like a suicide mission." Mia's voice was urgent. "Captain, we can't win this fight. We need a plan." Ethan's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched. And then, a weak whisper echoed from behind them. "Let me help." Ethan turned. The girl was awake. Barely, but awake. She tried to stand, her body trembling with exhaustion. The golden glow in her veins was faint, but still there. Ethan rushed to her side, steadying her. "You're too weak," he said. "You need to rest." She looked up at him, her star-filled eyes dim, but filled with unbreakable determination. "If I do not fight, you will all die." Ethan exhaled sharply. He didn't want to let her. He didn't want to risk losing her. But if they didn't do something, they were already dead. Mia's screen flickered. More enemy ships were locking on. Greg shouted, "Brace for impact." And Ethan made his choice. He looked at the girl and nodded. "Do it." She closed her eyes. And then, as the Carracks Armada fired their final attack, the girl's golden light exploded outward. A shockwave of pure energy tore through space, and for the first time in their history, The Carax felt fear, the beginning of something greater. A war in the stars. The golden shockwave surged outward, a pulse of raw, uncontainable energy that tore through the void of space like a collapsing star. The Carax armada, once poised for total annihilation, now faced the impossible. Their ships, massive, indestructible leviathans of war, began to fracture as golden light invaded their hulls, seeping into their very structure like a virus rewriting the rules of reality. One by one, engines failed. Weapons short-circuited. The colossal mothership trembled, its black exoskeleton cracking for the first time in its existence. Inside the Odyssey, alarms blared as Ethan Carter and his crew clung to whatever they could, their ship tossed by the sheer force of the energy wave. Mia Torres gritted her teeth, fingers flying over her console. We're losing control. The energy field is, Captain, it's bending space itself. Ethan barely managed to stay upright. He turned toward the source of the explosion, toward her. The girl floated above the command deck, her body wreathed in celestial fire, golden patterns spinning around her like shattered constellations. Her silver hair moved as if caught in an unseen cosmic current, and her star-filled eyes blazed like miniature suns. She had become something more than human. And the Carax knew it. The Queen's desperation. A transmission crackled through the ship's failing comms, barely holding against the storm of golden energy. Impossible. The voice of Xervax, Queen of the Carax, trembled, not with rage, but with something deeper. Fear. You should not exist. The first war was ended. The cycle was broken. The girl's gaze lifted to the screen, her voice echoing through the entire ship, though her lips did not move. Your kind tried to erase us. She raised her hand, and in the vastness of space, the damaged Carax warships froze. You failed. Ethan could barely breathe as the girl's energy surged again, this time targeting the enemy fleet directly. The mothership groaned, the very metal of its hull warping, its runes flickering between existence and collapse. For the first time, the unbreakable Carax technology was breaking. Ethan's choice. But then, Ethan saw something the others didn't. The girl was changing. Her form flickered between solid and light, her body unstable as she channeled more power than she could hold. She was burning away. Ethan's heart pounded. Stop. The girl hesitated. Ethan pushed forward, stepping through the weightless energy pressing against the air. You're not built for this. Her golden gaze met his. This is what I was made for. Maybe, Ethan said, but I don't think you were meant to die doing it. She faltered, the raw cosmic fire flickering in her veins dimmed for a moment. Mia shouted from the controls. Captain, if she keeps going, she'll tear herself apart. Ethan's jaw tightened. He turned back to the girl. I don't know who made you. I don't know why. But I do know one thing. You're not a weapon. You're alive. And you deserve to live. The girl's expression softened, just slightly. For the first time, the light in her eyes flickered with uncertainty. Then what do I do? Ethan stepped forward. You choose. A silence filled the space between them. Then the golden storm stilled. The girl lowered her hands, and the pulsing wave of destruction slowed, stopped. She had chosen not to destroy. And in that moment, the Carax were defeated. The fall of the Carax. The mothership, its core now exposed and unstable, began to collapse inward. The remaining Carax ships, their energy drained, retreated into the void, fleeing for the first time in their history. Xervax's scream of rage echoed across the failing comms. This is not over. And then, with a final, deafening rupture, the Carax mothership imploded, vanishing into a blackened singularity, leaving behind only silence. The war was over. For now. What comes next? The Odyssey drifted in the quiet void of space. The girl staggered, her glowing body dimming. Her silver hair returned to normal, her star-filled eyes now exhausted, flickering like dying embers. Ethan caught her before she could fall. Her voice was barely a whisper. I don't know what I am." Ethan steadied her. "Then we figure it out. Together." She looked up at him, uncertainty in her gaze. No one had ever offered her that before. Maya leaned on the console, exhaling. "So, we just picked a fight with the most terrifying race in the galaxy." Liam gave a tired chuckle. "Yeah, and somehow, we're still alive." Ethan glanced at the empty space where the Karax fleet had been. They had won. But deep down, he knew this wasn't the end. The Karax weren't just conquerors. They were hiding something. The war wasn't over. This was only the first battle. Ethan looked at the girl, the last remnant of an ancient war. She was the key to something far greater than they understood. And now, humanity had a fighting chance. Because the daughter of the stars had returned. Final shot. A new mission begins. As the Odyssey turned, drifting toward the uncharted horizon, Ethan gave his final order. "Set course for the nearest secure outpost. We have a lot of questions, and it's time we got some answers." The stars stretched before them. The future was uncertain. But one thing was clear. This was just the beginning.